Guys, today we're going to walk you guys through attempting a max. If you guys would like to attempt a max, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into something quite heavy. Generally, I don't let athletes do 1 rep maxes. There's really not a good reason for me to get it. I can get just as much information from a 3 or a 5 or a 2 if you want to do that. But today, we're going to let you guys get a little bit out of the norm. We're going to have as many spotters as possible. The first thing I'm going to get into is spotting. So in my gym, no one ever bails under a squat. It's not a thing. If you get under a bar, you will stand it up, whether it takes 3 of us to lift you up, but you're going to get up and rack the bar every time you're under the bar. I've just seen too many people try to kick out from underneath the bar clip an ankle, all types of injuries. Hit spinal on the way down, like knock yourself out. It's just not a good idea to get under a bar and then think about bailing. And again, generally we should be training sub-maximal anyway, so there should be no reason to be so high that we have to bail under something, right? Maybe once, twice a year, should we be maxing? There's other ways like AMRAPs and other things that we can do to develop that. We talked about that earlier in some of the other seminars. So if I'm spotting, Drew, can I borrow you real quick? Generally, we'll call it up to about 400-ish, and again, that's really dependent on the athlete. When I spot someone, I'm going to be behind them, and I'm basically going to cruise right in there. Oftentimes, if the athlete is going super heavy, I will already have my hands on them. If they cry about it, they should be stronger, and they shouldn't need me, right? But it's the same thing. I want to be able to catch him as soon as I start seeing him dip. So when we go to squat, we're going to squat together, and if he starts to fail, I'm going to squat together, we're going to work our way up, right? Coaches, if you guys are working with athletes, give a cue like, hey, I'm going to touch you. Make sure we're not getting in these areas, right? And we're just getting everything out of the way, right? It's the safest way to spot someone in a squat. If you're an ogre and your athletes are little teeny tiny humans, then sure, you can kind of like over top of them with like 50, 60-ish pounds, but generally just not the safest position. If we're going to get really, really heavy, I'm going to generally ask for at least 3 spotters. Sometimes we have more 4 or 5 spotters. But if anybody's going to attempt anything close to like 450, 500-ish, we're going to have side spotters and a back spot, right? And then we'll just come up with like a safe word, peaches, pineapple, grab me, help me, one of those type of things, right? Generally, you don't want to use the word as up as your safe word or squat as your safe word because your coaches and training partners are going to be screaming those anyway. So we're not going to use those, right? Yay, nay? Spotting, pretty good-ish. So we've gone over all these cues. In that first seminar, I'm just going to really quick, really briefly kiss on these again. Again, stay tight, right? You'll hear your coaches scream those. I'm working on bracing, right? Big belly. Chest up, elbows under the bar, hips back, knees out, grab the floor, right? And there's all types of variations of these. But what I want you guys to get in your head right now, right, is a cue is not necessarily a movement. Sometimes you'll have over-cueing, over-coaching, right? So when I say hips back, I do mean hips back, but I also don't mean this, right? It's not a good position. Same thing when I say chest up, I want you to move your chest up, but I also don't want this. This isn't a very good squatting position, right? So when I give you a cue, I'm trying to correct the opposite movement that's probably trying to happen. So generally one where we hear knees out, knees out, knees out, that's because your knees are starting to dip, right? We're starting to get into valueless movement. We're starting to get into that position. But do I want your knee out? No. I want it over midfoot, guiding with the toes inside the tracking. We call it a box, right? The shoe. Basically, a shoe is my safe zone, right? I don't want my knee all the way out here, but I'm using the cue to help you move out. Could I use a different cue? Torque the floor, spread the floor, open the taint like Drew likes to use, right? I could use lots of different cues. Just happens to be the one that you and your coach have used before, right? So again, when I say chest up, we're talking about basically a broad chest position and not a caved chest position, right? So most of that, I could also say, pinch your shoulder blades. That's probably gonna accomplish the same thing, right? Now my chest broadens up, right? Rib cage down, brace the core, all of those things, right? Rib cage down, squeeze, brace the core, big belly, right? They're cues. I don't want my rib cage all the way down here because that's not a strong position either, right? So don't get so wrapped up over, well, like you need knees out, knees out, knees out. No, knees out is a correction for knees in. We're just using those as cues, right? Is anybody confused on any of these cues that we got? No? No? All right, we're gonna get right to the nitty gritty then. Guys, I'm gonna walk you through a very general warm-up. If you are working with a coach, warm-ups are always going to be general, okay? You need to know your body, and you should start more specifically in between your like warm-up sets, addressing your own body. We all have different body shapes. We all work different jobs. Some of us are very athletic in their job. Some of us sit in a chair in our job, right? So if you sit in a chair, you might have tighter hip flexors. If you work construction all day, you might get to the gym and be like, my lower back's blown out, but I'm warm. I'm ready to go, right? So we need to play around with those. The general warm-up that I'm gonna go through is one that I use pretty often. But again, I always tell my athletes, every movement should be an assessment, right? So if I go like this, and I'm like, whoo, hold on, maybe we do some static before we get into moving dynamic. Maybe I'm so tight that we need to do those, right? So when I'm moving, I'm always assessing. So when I start squatting and everything feels good, I'm like, all right, I don't need as big as a warm-up as I normally do. Or if I go to squat and I'm like, ooh, I'm not ready yet, then I know I need to warm up slightly more, right? So as you guys are moving through my general warm-up, if you need help more specifically addressing your body, ask one of the coaches, right? How to improve on the warm-up, because again, this is a general warm-up, but you guys should be mentally assessing your movements, right? We're gonna go through this warm-up and then we're gonna start working on squatting. When you guys are squatting, I recommend we make roughly 10% jumps. The first jump can be pretty big, but I don't want everyone in here just going 135, 225, 315. Ah, man, I'm pretty heavy, right? A, that's not a great warm-up. B, you're wasting reps, and we get better at things through repetitions, right? So if I cut those and I go maybe 135, 165, 195, 225, 255, then I start working up, well, now I've tripled the amount of volume that I got in that day, which means I've tripled the amount of repetitions, and I've almost tripled the amount of practice in one single day, right? So as you guys are moving, I like 10% jumps. The first one can be a little bit big. I know we all want to get 135 on the bar as fast as possible, but after that, we should make 10% jumps. That means if you are a 200-pound squatter, 10 pounds on each side, or 20-pound jump will be a 10% jump. If you are a 500, 600-pound squatter, plate quarter is roughly 20, 40, 20, 40, 20, 40 jump, right? That's okay. If you're a 300-pound squatter, 10s and a 5 or 15s, which is 30-pound jumps, 10%, right? As we get closer to 70, 80, 90%, we'll make even smaller jumps, okay? If you're going for a 1-rep max, you will grab a spot today, no matter what. If it even feels like it's gonna be 1-rep heavy, you'll grab a spot. When you guys are getting under the bar, take as many times as you want until it feels like it's the right weight. That being said, I know 135 weighs 135 pounds, but it should feel like the percentage you are putting your mind on it. So for us, it's roughly 30-ish%. If I get under 135 and it feels like it's 50%, I'm probably not warm yet. I need to take 135 for a couple more rides. Sometimes when we're deadlifting or squatting, I hit 135 for 5, 6, 7 sets of singles or doubles or triples until it feels the right way. Then I make a jump. Then I make a jump. And sometimes I get to another one and Drew wants to put another plate on. I'm like, I need one more pass until it feels like it's my 70% or feels like it's my 80%, right? So when I ask you guys, how heavy is it? That's me asking you how heavy it feels to you. It's a relative term. I know what the bar weighs and how much weight is on the bar. Heavy is gonna be, it feels like 50, 60. It feels like a 9 or 10. It feels like I'm gonna get crushed. Cool? All right, guys. Generally, I'd like you guys to get your heart rate up a teeny tiny bit, maybe some rope, maybe some rower, jump rope, skip, whatever we're into, but I'm gonna shoot you guys right into this warm up. My first exercise is gonna be leg swings, right? So I'm trying to keep my leg as straight as I can, my midline as straight as I can. If you guys wanna use PVC pipes, or if you guys wanna use a stanchion, you can, but generally I'm gonna start with a leg swing position, and I'll do 10 front to back, and then I'm gonna do 10 left to right. Everybody ready, go. Then guys, the next exercise is gonna be hip circles, right? So it's not necessarily a hip circle that I'm trying to do. I'm actually trying to rotate my femur inside my socket. If you guys are already fairly mobile and have great mobility inside that, we can do these standing, right? So I'll drive the knee up, I push it out as far as it goes. As I push it out, I make sure that my hips don't turn. So again, this is after years and years of practice. A lighter or easier version, I'm gonna come into a plank or push-up position on the wall. I'm gonna brace my core, push into the wall. I'm gonna drive that knee up. I'm gonna push it out as far as it'll go. And again, my hip and belly button stay pointed towards the wall, and then I drive it down and around, right? So 10 out, 10 in each leg. Ready to go. Then guys, the next exercise is gonna be a nice slow and controlled mountain climber. So I'm doing this exercise so that my abs kind of start to turn on a little bit, and so that my hip flexors are starting to get used to bringing my leg back towards my center of body, right? So in a plank or push-up position, a nice tight plank or push-up position, I'm gonna drive my knee and my toe towards my face as high as I can. So I don't want my toe pointing to the ground, right? We don't squat that way. We squat with the dorsiflexion. So I'm driving up as high as I can. Notice that I'm not skipping and I'm just driving it nice and slow. If you guys want to put your foot on the ground, you can. We'll do about 10. All right, so nice 5 left, 5 right, nice slow and controlled, guys. Then guys, the next one, very similar exercise. I'm gonna be in a plank or push-up position. I'm gonna drive my heel outside my knee. I'm sorry, my heel outside my palm, my knee outside my elbow, trying to keep that back leg as straight as I can, right? You guys can also get into like world's greatest stretch in this position, but today we're just gonna work here, right? And I'm trying to make sure that I stay in good squat dynamics. So I don't want my knees caved in. I don't want all the way forward like this and my heel not on the ground. We'll do 5 left, 5 right. And I call these groiners, but you guys can call them all different types of things. And guys, there's a ton of different hip flexor muscles and hip flexors stretches, right? So we're getting into like a high kneel position. Generally, I like to open mine to 90 degrees and kind of do like a 360. I'm basically taking this femur, jamming it inside the socket, and I'm opening up backwards, forward, and I can even kind of open up here. This one's like a static hip flexor stretch, or first base stretch, some people call it. So in the high kneeling position, I'm gonna switch so you guys can see me, right? In the high kneeling position, I'm going to squeeze my butt and try my best to pelvic tilt underneath my body. So if you guys are aware of your body and you can see what's going on, I'm turning my butt underneath me. I don't need to exaggerate this position very much to feel this stretch. So if you see somebody and they're kind of like all the way out here in this position, it's more of a groin than it is hip flexor. I'm just driving my butt underneath me. If you guys want to, you can also open up and elongate this position here a little bit, but we'll kind of do like 30 seconds-ish, a minute each side, okay? That hip flexor that we're aiming for should be about 2 to 3 inches below the hip crease in this pocket. And then guys, I personally would do some goblet squats, some air squats, maybe some wall squats. Then I'd probably move into some kettlebell swings or maybe some glute bridges because I want to get that posterior chain started firing. And then generally I like to jump on my lower body days, right? Not a lot of jumps, maybe 10 to 15, but just kind of get everything firing. Today for the time, so that we can all get under the bar, if you guys want to do that, you can. If not, let's start grabbing bars and let's start getting under the bar and start squatting.